I ironed my blouse twice before leaving, checked my lipstick 3 times, told myself not to cry. It was just dinner, just my family, just the people I'd loved and raised for over 40 years. We were meeting at my son Blake's house, the big, glass one with the shiny windows and the oversized driveway. The one he and Candace bought after Henry and I co-signed the loan. Funny how no one mentions that part anymore. They said we were gathering to talk about estate things, which I assumed meant the house, the lake property, the retirement accounts. All the things Henry and I built while eating canned soup and skipping vacations for 2 decades straight. I brought a blueberry pie. Henry always said it was my best. Maybe it would soften the mood. When I walked in, no one looked up. Blake was pouring wine like some wannabe Napa Valley sommelier. Candace, in her gold heels and fake smile, clicked around the kitchen like she owned the place. Their son Jack gave me a polite nod, the kind you give to someone you vaguely remember from a funeral. We sat down. 9 of us at the table I bought. Them last Christmas. Blake started right in. We've been thinking it's best if we simplify things. I knew what that meant. Less of me, more of them. When I asked gently, "Have you spoken to the lawyer about the trust?" Candace didn't even look up from her phone. She just muttered, "You're just the widow, Eleanor. Maybe just stay quiet for now." The room went silent. Then Blake chuckled. Trevor, my other son, laughed too. Like it was a punchline in some sitcom. My hands shook under the table. Not because I was weak, but because I realized something. This wasn't just about Henry being gone. It was about them burying me right beside him alive. I set down my fork. I stood, and I walked out. No words, no tears, no pie. They laughed when the door shut behind me, and they had no idea what was about to happen. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in Henry's old recliner, wrapped in the throw blanket with the frayed edges. At 2:30 in the morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked barefoot to the cabinet Henry always called the no-go drawer. Birth certificates, titles, tax returns, all the things the boys never bothered to touch. And that's where I found it. A thick white envelope, labeled in Henry's handwriting with one word, Eleanor. Inside was a letter. Henry's voice on paper. "If you're reading this, something's gone wrong. The boys aren't bad, but they're selfish. And Candace, she's worse. I made some changes. Everything is in your name, the house, the accounts, the lake property. Don't feel guilty. Don't let them shame you into silence. And if they ever try to take what's yours, burn it all down." Behind the letter, notarized documents, legal seals, power of attorney. Every asset transferred to me 8 months. Before he died. Henry had seen it coming. I pressed the paper against my chest and whispered, "I've got it now. You don't have to worry." By morning, I wasn't just a widow. I was the firewall between my family and everything they thought they deserved. At 9 a.m., Alan Kramer, our lawyer of 30 years, stood in my dining room. We spent hours combing through Henry's paperwork. Every clause, every signature, every stamp. By 11:15, I had signed 6 documents. Every asset, every account, every property legally mine. Alan asked, "Do you want them to find out through their bank accounts? Or do you want to call a meeting?" I said, "Let them feel it." And that's exactly what happened. By 3 p.m., Blake texted, "Hey, weird question, but do you know why the cabin account's locked?" 5 minutes later, Candace called. I let it go to voicemail. By 4:30, the family group chat was panicking. Trevor finally asked, "Did someone change the access?" On Mom's end? "Yes, Trevor. Someone did." At 5:05, I walked up Blake's stone path with the manila folder in my hand. They were all there, Candace with her arms crossed, Trevor lurking in the hallway, Blake faking control. I laid out the documents on the counter. "This is the new estate plan. Everything is under my name. Everything. Blake scoffed. You can't just move money without the trust board. I smiled. There is no trust board. Henry dissolved it last year. Candace snatched at the papers with her long nails. This isn't binding. That's when I handed her the notarized copy with Alan's seal. The room went silent. This isn't a negotiation, I told them. This is a notification. And as of this morning, you have no legal claim to any of it. No one spoke. For once, I had the floor. I walked to the door, turned back, and said, "The next time you want to discuss my future, you'll need an appointment." Then I left them standing in a house Henry and I paid for, choking on the control they thought. About 2 days later, Alan called me. "Eleanor, there's something you need to see." In his office, he slid a folder across the desk. Bank statements, transfers, loan agreements, all with Blake's name on them. He had taken out half. $1 million in loans using Henry's business line of credit as collateral after Henry was diagnosed. Fraudulent? Illegal. Heartless. Alan asked, "Do you want to press charges?" I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed him to stew. I wanted him broke before he was scared. That night, I sat with Henry's old journal. On one page, in his neat handwriting, I found, "Blake's withdrawals look fishy. Ask Alan." Henry had known. Now it was my job to finish what he couldn't. They invited me to a barbecue like nothing had happened. Like they could wallpaper over betrayal with paper plates and burgers. I showed up, because sometimes silence isn't power. Showing your faces. I dropped a folder on the picnic table. "We need to talk. Inside?" "Proof of Blake's fraud. This is what Blake did while your father was dying," I said. Calm, flat, uncheckable. Candace shrieked about setups. Blake tried to laugh it off. Trevor grabbed a beer like a coward. I cut them off. "It's notarized. Confirmed. The only reason you're not in jail right now is because I'm giving you one last chance." Candace sputtered. I turned to her. Henry saw it. "He just didn't trust you to fix it." Blake shouted, "You're going to burn this family down over some paperwork." I leaned in. "No, you did that when you stole from your father's grave." Then I walked out. Days later, a white envelope slid under my door. Inside was a forged psychiatric recommendation form claiming I needed a capacity evaluation. They were trying to strip me of control by declaring me unfit. I traced it. Alan confirmed. Candace. She had bribed a notary and forged documents. I said 2 words. "Press charges." That evening, the sheriff cuffed her on Blake's driveway. Fraud, forgery, abuse of the court system. Ava called me later, voice trembling. "She tried to blame you, Grandma," but nobody believed her. Not even Dad. For the first time, I felt Henry's voice in my chest saying, "Good, keep going." Candace took a plea deal. A permanent record. Fines that would shatter their last bit of stability. Blake stayed silent. Not out of dignity, but defeat. I shifted focus. Not on revenge anymore, but on legacy. I transferred a small house, the one with yellow shutters Henry loved, into Ava's name. She cried when I told her, "I don't deserve this." "You do," I said, "because you never pretended." Then I started a nonprofit, the Henry Whitmore Second Chance Fund, a grant program for widows over 60, blindsided by selfish families. The first application came in within a day. A woman in Kentucky robbed by her kids the day after the funeral. I approved her in 2 hours because I remembered. And I would not let anyone else be erased the way they tried to erase me. Weeks later, Blake sent an invitation. Another family. Dinner. I went, not to forgive, but to stand tall. Candace wasn't their court order. Trevor hovered, useless as ever. Ava sat beside me, steady and quiet. Blake stood at the head of the table, smaller now, drained. He muttered something about families weathering storms. I set down my glass. looked at each of them. This isn't a storm. It's the consequence. And every one of you wrote it. I stood. You told me I was just the widow, that I should sit quietly. But I wasn't quiet when I built this family. I wasn't quiet when I kept it alive. And I sure as hell won't be quiet now that I've taken it back. This table, this room, your guests here. Remember that? Then I walked out, not angry. Just finished. Outside, the sky was sharp and clean. For the first time since Henry's funeral, I felt light, because freedom, I realized, doesn't always come from forgiveness. Sometimes it comes from standing tall and saying, no more. They wanted me silent. Instead, I became louder than ever. I wasn't just the widow, I was Eleanor Whitmore. And everything they thought was theirs was mine.